All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Let's Rap About It podcast. It's been a minute, and we've missed you guys, so we're glad to be back. And tonight we have with us not one, but two guests. Since we've been gone for a while, we figured we would bring out the big guys. So tonight, of course, there's me, Mika, and I also have John with me, and we also have Daz and Tanya. Daz is a certified professional midwife whose journey into supporting families began with a passion for guiding them through life's most transformative experiences. Her path to becoming a CPM was paved with hands-on experience as an apprentice at births in Kentucky and Ohio. Prior to joining the birth staff in 2024, Daz spent several years as a full-spectrum doula and childbirth educator, working closely with families to ensure they felt empowered and supported through their journey into parenthood. Her dedication to her craft has touched the lives of countless families and guided them through the sacred and transformative experience of childbirth. So welcome, Daz. We're glad to have you with us tonight.
I'm so glad to be here.
Also with us tonight, we have Tanya. Tanya is a full-spectrum doula. She came into this work because of her path into motherhood. Because of her advanced maternal age, she wanted the support of a doula who would see her as an individual and not as a statistic. She wanted to feel empowered during her birth experience, and which she did thanks to the knowledge and resources and support provided by her doula, which just happened to be Daz. So full circle, Daz was Tanya's doula. Tanya is extremely passionate about letting clients find their voices and holding space for their journey. It is her hope that through doula work, which is a form of advocacy and reproductive justice, she can help members of her community that look like her. Things that are important to Tanya are diversity, awareness of biases against Black mothers, and inclusion of LGBTQ plus people. So thank you both, Tanya and Daz, for joining us tonight. We're so excited to have you here. Before we jump into our main topic for tonight, let's just catch up a little bit. Today is Thursday, so how has everybody's week been? And it's been so long since I've seen Daz and John. So how have you guys been?
You can go first, big ass. Go first.
I've been okay. I've been good. It's been a long week. I feel like daylight savings done took me out. I don't know about y'all, but I'm just slowly recovering. But other than that, drinking my kombucha to keep it going. And looking forward to some more spring days because it seems like spring has sprung.
Yes. It was almost 80 today and yesterday too.
It was like 81 on my drive home just a while ago. Hence
it was
the
toasty.
Is out.
You're not waiting. Your shoulder's out already.
That's right. You know the gun's out.
For me, it's been pretty good since we last talked. Nothing too crazy going on. Still subbing at the school, working with the kids. So
are you on spring break right now?
No, my spring break was last week. It just passed.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's been okay. Actually, working at the school and subbing with them has really made me reconsider, like, do I actually want to be like a real teacher? So that's something I've been thinking about recently. So yeah.
Okay, that's cool. What subject would you want to teach, or is it the interaction with the kids that you enjoy the most?
It's the interaction with the kids. I would probably do like primary school, so like elementary age. So I would be across like all the different subjects, like probably like first or second grade.
That's
okay.
Dope.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll catch up.
Okay.
And I'm gonna get your number, John, because my daughter wants to be a teacher. So.
Really? Okay. Yeah, it's really fun. More fun than I expected it to be. For sure.
I love that.
That's cool. I think working with kids in primary elementary school age is good because they'll still listen to you. When you get to middle school and high school, they are adults almost, and you want to fight them sometimes.
Yeah, I found
and not fight kids.
Really young, like first, second grade is good, and then like juniors and seniors because they're just ready to go. They're just trying to get it done and get out.
Yeah.
But like that middle school age is the absolute worst. So
They're
I try to stay away from middle school.
They're experiencing with, they're getting older, trying to see what they can get away with, trying to find themselves, and yeah.
Yeah, I can't do
It's
it.
a lot. How have you been, Tanya?
I've been fine. I actually had to go into the office today, so I was in DC, and then had to leave that to come back home. So today is a long day, but I'm good. I'm with everyone else. The weather and the change of time, I have all kinds of feelings. So
Yeah. That daylight savings time. Listen, I feel like I'm always in a constant state of tired anyway. But the daylight savings time is just, it takes me out. 1 hour should not have that big of an impact, but that hour going either forward or backwards just messes me up.
Yeah.
Yeah, but my week's been pretty good. I did order some, I don't know if you all have heard of the Black Girl vitamins.
Yes.
So my sister, who is not here, absentee, yes, I'm gonna call her out on it, and I'm gonna make sure she sees this part. She's been taking them now, I think for like 30 days. So she was saying how much more energy she has, and she's not coming home and doing her usual nap. Even if she tries to nap, she can't go to sleep. She has so much more energy. So I think she's either selling them now or she has like a discount code or something. So I ordered some today. So I'm excited for those to come and try them out. Hopefully they give me the boost that I'm looking for. And I'll report back, on the next episode, which maybe by then I'll have two weeks taken. I'll let you know how it works out.
The only thing that's been getting me through, can I share what that's been?
Yeah.
So it's actually in my mug right now because I like to mask it, but it's kombucha. I am drinking kombucha in my mug. And this one has L-theanine and caffeine and lion's mane. And it really balances me out and then helps me.
How much caffeine is in it?
100 milligrams, which...
Oh, that's not bad.
It's not. In comparison to other sport drinks that I've had, like Alani, if I'm at a birth, I really need a strong pick-me-up. I feel like this is a good balance, and especially with the lion's mane and stuff like that, helps me focus. So my only problem is, even though 100 milligrams of caffeine isn't a lot, if I have it too late in the day, then I'm never going to sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That balance.
Caffeine doesn't really bother me. Well, I used to say it didn't, but there's a limit. At one point, I was binging on the nitro cold brew from Starbucks. Ooh. And it has 256 milligrams of caffeine. And every day at 6 o'clock, I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I don't know. It was the caffeine. It was just too much. I had to cut back on that. So in comparison, 100 milligrams, it's not too bad.
Yeah,
that's not too bad. But I did see your Instagram post the other day where you stocked up on it, and you're like, I had to stop myself from drinking another one. So you might be addicted to it.
No, it honestly, this flavor is lemon mint. It tastes so good. I don't even really drink juice like that, but there's pomegranate citrus and raspberry. And it's light. So yes, I have to stop myself from drinking it because it tastes good and I don't need additional caffeine. So that's the problem.
Is it carbonated?
It is. So I'll be outside, I'm belching all day. And I'm just talking to people excuse me.
I'm gonna have to try it. Do they only sell it at Whole Foods?
So I always seem to get it at Wegmans, and I found it by accident. I really do like
it. So now the kombucha is good for what? Is that for gut health?
Yes, it is really good for gut health. And, we say a lot of the ailments that people experience, it's from the foods that we ingest. So, those things sit in our gut. So having those probiotics, it helps people to go regularly. It really does promote healthy flora in your body and all those kinds of things. So in addition to having a healthy gut, the fact that this is This particular drink is good for your brain and your focus and your energy. All of those things combined together really makes it appealing to me.
I'll have to check that out. Some of
They
the
make
more
it.
traditional ones
Oh,
that have
yeah.
the stuff in the bottom,
Oh, the
like
Scooby.
that's what that's called.
Oh, the
I can't get
Scooby.
past the look of the stuff in the bottom, and then you feel it in your mouth, and it's just. Mm-mm.
Try
But you don't have
Hum.
that with this one.
No, I don't
Hum?
have it with this one. Yeah, there's a brand called Hum, Humm. They have it in bottles and in cans, and I feel like that doesn't have it. But Health Aid is another brand that I like. Please, I am so sorry because I could totally just spend the rest of this podcast episode talking about kombucha. So we should totally move on.
No, it's good. So I'm gonna have to try it out. I'm writing it down so I can try to. What's the brand of that one?
This one is called Bucci, and
Okay.
this line is Living Energy, but Bucci makes a lot of others. Fun fact, on my first date with my husband, he took me to a coffee shop and then we were talking and he said he never had kombucha before and we were down the block from a Whole Foods. And I was like, you gotta try kombucha. So we did like a kombucha flight on our first date.
That's cool.
Wow. And does he still drink it?
He does. He does. And
Oh,
he's
okay. Because if you
also
said no, I was like, he was just being nice to you for the first date.
no, so that's why, like in our house, we have this, and we also have Hum and Health Aid. So even to this day, we still
Okay.
can do a kombucha flight at our house.
That's cool.
Thanks.
Well, thanks for sharing that.
No problem.
I have to try that and the Black Girl vitamins. They also have a probiotic, B12. It's a bunch of them. I think I ordered one of each. It was probably overkill, but we'll see how it works. All right. So tonight, as I'm sure you can tell by the topic, we're talking about what's the difference between a doula and a midwife, and we're going to get into some of the benefits of both, some of the maybe potential issues and things that you all see. Just to get us started, I do have one thing that I found in the Washington Post that I just like to read about Texas. So it says, Black women in Texas, the state that contains 10% of the nation's birth. The state that accounts for 10% of the nation's birth, die at more than twice the rate of their white counterparts in connection with childbirth and at a more than 4 times that of Hispanic women, according to a preliminary review in the state's most recent maternal mortality and morbidity review. So that's a pretty alarming, some pretty alarming numbers. So the state of Texas alone accounts for 10% of the nation's birth, and of that, twice the amount of Black women die in birth than white women in the state of Texas. And I'm sure those numbers probably are similar across the country and other states as well. But that's an alarming number, and I think I know for myself, and I'm sure others did not initially realize like the mortality rate for Black women in birth and how Black women experience so many other issues than other races for a number of reasons. And we'll get into that a little bit more in the podcast, but I just thought maybe that's something we can think about as we get started. So just to start off, I guess Tanya and Daj, you can each tell us in your own words, like, what's your why? I know I read a little bit in your bios, but what's your why for going into birth work as Tanya as a doula and Daz as a doula that's now started out as a doula but has now transitioned into midwifery? Either one of you can go first.
Go ahead, Daz.
Oh, I was waiting for you.
You want me to go? Okay, I can go.
Yeah.
So let me I just want to backtrack a little bit, and Daz can speak more to this coming from a midwifery view. But the statistics actually for the number of Black, brown bodies that are impacted by the maternal mortality rate is actually 2.5, 2.8 times than our counterparts. and that was as of a study in 2021. So that's not even like a long time ago. That was like recent. That number has increased and increased over time. And unfortunately, as like you said, you'll talk about later, um, black and brown bodies aren't viewed as other bodies are viewed, and there's all kinds of reasons for that: racism, um, biases, and things like that. For me, my why, well, it starts so. I am for sure a product of Black women doing all the things and feeling like they have to do all the things, and then having a West Indian background. You don't, sitting and resting is not what you do. Like, I'm always going, going, going. And so when Daz, as we mentioned before, was my doula, and she would come and we had postpartum visits, I'd be like, "Oh, just sit and talk to me. Like, I don't need to sleep." Like, I'm like delirious, hungry, sleepy. I still want to like, I want to entertain Daz as opposed to her coming to do her job, which is to take care of my baby, give me some time to rest, and those type of things. I didn't know how to handle that. So I feel like I learned after having my daughter, and like I learned as time went on. Like when there was a time when I just like handed the baby over and went to sleep, like how impactful it was to have somebody who came. And that was the whole reason why I wanted to have a postpartum doula, but I just never used her for the purposes for which she was there to be. Therefore, and I think as time went on and I realized like the anxieties that I had and, feel like I always had to be doing all the things, I think I realized the importance of her job. And so I think just by talking to Daz while she was there and then just like tippy-toeing into it, I was just like, there are other people who are out there who are like me. I wouldn't necessarily say I'm a type A personality, but I do tend to lean that way. And so you just don't know how to release control of that part. And you having a baby is a big and monumental thing. And I think because of the society that we live in, we don't value that. And so it's expected, by a month, 2 months, you should have lost the weight. You should be doing things. You should not be resting. You should have the whole parenthood thing realized. And I just think that from my own experience and seeing that and how that impacted me, and to some people it's worse or better or whatever you want to call it, varied experiences. I felt like I wanted to be someone who can help other people not do all the things. And then having the alarming rates that are out there and hearing of more and more stories of women dying in childbirth or right afterwards because of hemorrhaging and things like that, I was like, what I do as on a daily basis is cool, but it's not as important work as doing birth worker stuff. So I feel like that's my why, is just wanting to help other people, and especially for me, which is why I said I like postpartum, is that we just don't think about what you would need somebody for afterwards. You prepare all for, you're going to have the baby, you have the appointments, or you have the anxiety from that. You have all these things that you have to do as a Black woman that you don't think about what happens afterwards. Because they don't give you a handbook with that baby. And there's so many things you discover along the way. And so I think that's my why. That's a long answer, but that's my why for why I do this.
Yeah, there's definitely no handbook. It would be nice, at least the job aid. How to? No, you figure it out as you go.
There you go.
Hey,
Rika. So, Daz, this is Rika. This is our other podcast host.
Hey,
Rika, this is Daz.
I'm not quite sure, like what Tanya was. I know what she was talking about. I'm not quite sure the initial question.
Oh,
let
me
catch you up. Her why, or why she does.
Yes.
But even just to see how quickly I can just jump in there. But anyway, but just to say and confirm and agree with her, as a mother in our society, it's pretty much like whoop-de-doo. So what, you had a kid, get back to your life. You created a whole human, okay? And Mika, you remember when I had, was it Brindley? You got more time off of work for your shoulder, an elective surgery, than I did for bringing a human into the world. Now, mind you, my last child, I was 4 42, getting ready to turn 42, I think, because Brinley is 5. So no, I was getting ready. Yeah, I was 42. Getting ready to
Brinley's
turn 40.
3.
Huh?
Brinley's 3.
3, and I turned 46 next week. So that means I was ready to turn 43.
43.
So now, mind you, I'm high risk in my 40s, had preeclampsia towards the end, and still only got my 8 weeks because I had a C-section. With Brooklyn, I had at 41. I put my own self on bed rest at 26 and a half weeks because of my experience with Elijah. And that's just quickly 25. I had my first child. He was born at 26 and a half weeks. And even still, 6 weeks off from work, I went back to work while my child was in the hospital for 3 months. No one cared. But with Brooklyn, because I had taken the time off before I had her, I wasn't even out 6 weeks before I went back to work because I had no more leave. So unfortunately, we're not, whereas other countries, you take your time. A year if you need it, you take your time and everything is okay. But we are 6 weeks, 8 weeks, and you're back to work.
Some people don't get that.
Yeah. As our grandmother would say, you're still wide open.
And you really are. Your body is you have a whole hole in your body, like a plate.
I'm sorry, John, that you have to endure this conversation. I'm sorry.
No.
But yeah, she would I can remember when I had Elijah, like I said, I was 25. And so, a few weeks later, I'm 25. I'm back out. I got my heels on and everything. And my grandma was like, what are you doing? You're wide open. Wide open. You can still catch
at 25, you don't get that.
What is she talking about? But I get it, Tanya. And even relinquishing that, because with Brooklyn, I mean, I have a house full of kids at this time who are older kids, but it's still hard to just say, yep, come and give me help, because we are typically not women that will ask for help anyway on anything. So I'm not going to ask you to come and help me take my child so I can take a nap. I'll be fine. I'll be perfectly fine. I'm okay. Why? And Mika will tell you, some days with Brooke, I would get an attitude if people was in my house. I don't even want you here. I'll be okay. I'm fine. It's hard to accept help generally. And so now you're really asking me to really relinquish a lot of my brand new baby, and I ask for your help. So definitely things that we need to learn to work on, of relinquishing that control, that I'm the mama. I'll be okay. I'll be fine. Give me my baby. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think two things. One, are you holding your camera?
I am.
Are you holding your phone? Can you sit it down? Because you're making me dizzy.
Listen, I was outside playing with the children when they bike riding and Kelvin.
Prop it up.
We late for the call. And I was like, oh Lord, listen, Linda,
But just to add, I'm gonna give you a second to answer the question too. But just to add to what Rika was saying, yeah, you're a new mom and you're like, oh, I don't feel like right asking you to take my baby so I can take a nap. But and I'm speaking only from the aspect of Black women. I don't know how another race may handle it, but as Black women, we always made to feel like you got to be strong, or you got to take on the world on your back. You got to do all these things. So to Tanya's point, and I think Rika may have touched on it too, you're trying to be a mom. If you have other kids, you're trying to be a mom to them. You're going through postpartum, trying to take care of your baby. You're still trying to cook for the house, or, now you might have to go back to work. All the other many hats that you wear as a Black woman, and you feel like you don't get a break. You just keep going. And I think, we need to break that stigma and understand that it's okay to ask for help. And if at any other time in your life you don't ask for help, I think asking for help postpartum is probably one of the most biggest times you should ask for help, because as you say, your body's still open, you're still healing. You just birthed a whole human. You have literally a hole in your body. Your organs are still moving back. Like, a lot happens during birth. You're close to death. Like, a lot happens. And I think that we just kind of breeze over that. And as a the country, like the United States is not important. It's not important enough to have a year off, or it's just not a thing here, which is sad. And I hopefully over time that'll get better. I think it has gotten better in little bits, but it needs to be more universal. But Dawes, what's your why? I know you started out as a doula and now you're a midwife. I mean, what's your why for both?
Sure. But my why was, I started off as a doula because I didn't know that birth work was a thing people got paid for. I had my daughter at 19. I supported other people with their birth experiences, whether they wanted to continue to grow their family or whether they chose not to grow their family, whatever they look like, or whether they weren't able. And I had been through that experience of nursing and growing a family. And then when I found out that in New York, Black women specifically were 12 times more likely to have poor outcomes. And I was just like, this is wild. I volunteer for every demographic, but I want to support people who look like me the most. And then I found a training, and I started off with one training and then another. And as I moved to the DMV area and I started attending more and more births that looked different because of COVID, and I realized that, midwives were a better option for some people who qualified for that experience. And I felt like I had the capacity to be another option for people. So in real life, if you break a bone, so saying paper cut survivor is a big deal because I actually don't like blood. I don't like broken bones. I don't like any of those things. Don't do that. I will pass out. But in birth, I don't see it as that. I see it as I'm here for my purpose. I'm here to support this family. This is what's needed in this moment. And I'm grateful to have been a part of people's stories for people who qualify for an out-of-hospital experience.
Yeah. So as, being Black birth workers, do you all find that there's challenges that you face, whether it be with education, burnout, having to produce credentials, going into different hospitals? I guess for you, Dawes, going into a birthing center, you have to have that regardless, right? It's not a question. But from other aspects, as being a Black birth worker, do you feel like you face any additional challenges because of that?
I think my biggest challenges, especially moving into midwifery, not so much as a doula, because people sought me out because I was a Black doula. People sought me out because I think I was very intentional about the words that I use and how I show up. And I think it's very clear that I'm like LGBTQIA plus friendly, and straight people, they cool too. Like, I'm for everybody. I think that was important to make it be known that I want to be a safe person. So I had people look for people like me. But as a midwifery student, it was hard to find a preceptor. And that's why you mentioned in my bio that I lived right here and I had to travel to Kentucky and Ohio to get the experience that I needed to Sankofa and bring that right here to the community that I want to serve.
What is a preceptor?
Thank you.
You know how I cried all the time about not being able to find it for my clinical rotation?
What is that? Is that someone that's like a sponsor?
It's like the mentor. It's your teacher. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So as an apprentice, my teacher, my mentor was my preceptor, and they were the ones who would teach me the skills that I needed to learn. And also they had the ability to sign off that I had mastered certain skills so I can move on. So without a preceptor, it's like you can't move forward.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So
interesting. So you had to go all the way to Ohio and Kentucky.
Yeah. And even though I've lived in Maryland since 2021, I still feel like I don't know this neighborhood because I've spent several months over there. I feel more so like Cincinnati is my second home because I had to leave for months at a time in order to get what I needed. Because there are not enough Black midwives nationwide. And then just because there are midwives in the area, it's not that they want to gatekeep per se, but maybe they don't have a high volume of families to support, so then they can't have a bunch of students. So in order for me to move forward, I did find a really good opportunity to learn from a midwife who had been doing it for about 3 decades.
Oh, wow. That's a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Tanya, did you have anything to add to that in regards to your experiences?
Oh, I have so much to add.
Add it. Come on, bring it, baby.
But let me just back up. I've only been doing officially been doing birth work for a year and maybe almost 6 months. So I'm still very much new to a lot of things. I have learned a lot in this year and some, but I'm glad that Dawes brought up the gatekeeping, because that's what I feel and have experienced in the time that I've been a doula, is that, and which I really appreciate Dawes for, is because I have found, I don't know if it's because it's this crabs in the barrel mentality, but I found that a lot of people that look like me don't want to share information with people who look like me. And so unfortunately, I feel like that's been what I've experienced. Like, because I'm a newer person, I rather get information from someone who's a little bit more experienced, to be like, well, do you think this, and this? Or just give me some kind of information. I mean, I'll do Google, I'll do all the searching before I come and ask you a question. But it seems like a lot of times people keep the information to themselves. And that's something I was surprised by, because I just thought, oh, the Black people are going to gather together, us against others. But that is not the case. I have found that it has been counterparts who are willing to go out of their way to help me. And this has happened more than one occasion. And the people who look like me are just like, no, you figure it out, because I had to figure it out, and that's just what it's going to be. And so that's definitely one challenge I have found. And I also feel like, because of the work that we do, I consider, I don't want it to be a privilege. I don't want that you being able to have someone to be there to advocate for you, or someone to be there after you have your baby, should be a privilege, but it really is. Not everybody can afford to have someone and pay someone for their services. And now, yes, Medicaid is covered in Virginia and some other states too as well. Medicaid covers for a doula, but there's so much work you have to put into that. And then the people who will be willing to pay are people who don't look like you. And so then you're kind of stuck in the middle of like, I want to help more brown people and people, Black and brown people, but now I feel like I have to then work for pennies to then be able to do this work. And I just feel like that's one challenge that continues to weigh on me, because I would love to help all the people, but the people who can afford me, and that's not even affording me, because what I'm asking is not even that much. So it's just like, but again, I feel like it's a privilege, and people just don't understand what we do. Like they think that doulas are the people who are here catching babies, and that's not the case. They think midwives are lesser than doctors, when midwives have been around longer than doctors. There's just all these things that I think that there's these perceptions that are out there, and I feel like those things are the things we combat. And so, yeah, I think those are generally some of the things that I've definitely found, and feeling like imposter syndrome, and feeling like I don't belong in this space. Like I need to have all the trainings and have been at 20 births to even say, hey, I'm a doula or I'm a birth worker, when I learned so much from one birth, much less, the 6 that I've attended thus far. So, yeah.
So you touched on one. Oh, go ahead.
No, I would have to say, Tanya, your perception of crabs in a barrel are not wrong. As a provider myself, I can work independently as a medical provider, and I'm trying myself to open my own telehealth, my own practice. Well, of course, there are people of my race who have done so, and I have reached out to some, and like you say, it's gatekeeping. While my other counterparts who I'm friends with, who are not of the Black community, have opened up the door. Sure, no, come on, let me tell you, this, you don't need to do that. This is all that you need to do. And as you say, I'm not asking you to hold my hand or guide me to. But sometimes you just need to go here, look over here. This is how you do it. Believe me, there are people that's always going to have babies in your guys' case. And in my case, there's always going to be people that are sick. I'm not taking anybody from you, you know. And I think that's a poor, that's unfortunately one of those things that we often face in our culture. The fear that if I help you, somehow you're going to hinder me from being able to do or to be able to advance, when that is just not, you know, we all know that's not, if that's not your mentality, that's not how you think. But there's definitely enough for everybody to go around, and God knows we could do great things if we were willing uh to help one another. And also, Tanya, no, you don't have to have 20 births to feel that you are valid or that you know what you're doing. Because as a medical provider, when I walked in that door working on myself by myself the first time, no idea what I was doing. Nobody knew. I had no idea what I was doing, but I was confident within myself. And I knew this much to know what I could talk about. And if I needed to leave out and go research something, okay, now I know. So you're never going to know that or feel like you know everything, because you won't. But it's all about continuing to educate yourself. So the next time that you see it, oh, I know what that is now. And you can talk fluently, you know, about it, because we're always learning as we go along.
Yeah. So just to touch back, well, now I got so much I want to say, but to go back on that crabs in a barrel thing, right? Not to beat it or, you know, drill on it on anything like that, but two things. One, I think that John's generation. What generation are you, John? You're a millennial?
No,
I'm Z.
Oh, wait a minute.
I'm a
Damien's a
millennial.
millennial.
Okay, Gen Z. Then we'll just say John's generation. I feel like they are getting better.
Oh yeah.
In certain aspects with the crab in the barrel, right? They're willing to share information. They have I don't know what you call them, brainstorming sessions or whatever they do. They share the information that they have, and they realize that it's enough out here for everybody. And some of the older people in our generation and older that still function under that crab in the barrel mentality. So lately I've been really into like Malcolm X, Black Power, you know, all those type of things. But I think that a lot of that stems, we're not too far removed from slavery, if we're being honest, right? And I think a lot of that stems from slavery and what we were talking about in Master, and how all those seeds and things were implanted. And over time, with each generation, I think we get better in letting some of that stuff go. And I feel like with John's generation, we're starting to see more of that, where it's okay to share information. There's enough out here for everybody to eat. And I think also with John's generation is that you see a lot of Gen Zs, they don't want to work the 9 to 5. So they're out here doing the side job, doing the hustling, doing different things, you know, finding, whether it's driving for Uber, becoming a content creator, doing all these things. And they're sharing that with others. So hopefully, I said all that to say that hopefully over time, like that crab in the barrel mentality gets better. And with that in mind, with you all having experienced that crab in the barrel mentality, what can you do now going forward in your either professions or helping other people, impacting others that may come that need help? Like, what can you do or what will you do to help them?
Well, I like to share something that I found out and that I'm working on, or that I'm like, oh, you should try this. I have no problem with that, because even though I may have had the idea, or what if you do it better? And you can come back like, well, you know, I did it this way and I found out that it was a little bit easier. I'm all for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel. Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead, Doss.
I feel similarly. I feel like I kind of feel bad for the people who have that scarcity mindset, especially directly related to the work that we do. Do you know how many uteruses out there? Like, for real, like there is an abundance of people getting knocked up, like on purpose, by accident, all the things. And we can't do it alone. Like, I am a person, if you meet me, you know enough that I love this work, but I also want balance. weekends. I want to take a nap. So if I want to work and take a nap, that means I can't do everything. And if the next person want to work and take a nap, they can't do everything. So I don't understand this gatekeeping mentality. It's like, so you want to be tired and burnt out? Like, okay. But I think what we can do and what I've been doing for a while is because I'm not from this area, I kind of low-key, soft word, bullied people into being my friends or into, just getting to know me. And I love community. I absolutely love community. And it always makes me think about in school. In school, we all had the same project, but guess what? Everybody won't come out with a different body of work. Every single body. And that doesn't mean like your A and my A are really in competition. We can both get an A+ on the assignment. It don't matter. It really doesn't matter. So what I like doing is I share a lot on social media. I've started WhatsApp groups for people who are DMV students in the area. I join every single thing that I see that's out there. If it's a Zoom call, if it's a community event, and even the mentees that I have now, they are people that I've seen at events and they was doing it for free. And I said, come in, no, you not. Let's get this money. And I would continue to do that for a short amount of time as long as I have capacity, but there is no joy in being tired. And I don't know what's the end goal and the victory for people who keep these things to themselves. I don't want that for me. I want to celebrate life and also celebrate people bringing life into this world. So that's what I'm doing. And I hope that I can do that until my dying day, honestly.
If I could interject and say something.
Go ahead.
Oh,
go
sorry.
Ahead. No, go,
If
John.
I could interject and say something, I think like this with anything as it relates to Rika, as it relates to you guys and the work that you do, and even like where I've experienced it doing hair and things like that. What God has for you is for you. So no matter how many people find out, like as it relates to me, what products you use or what technique you use or whatever, that same client, if it's meant to be and it's for you, it's gonna come to you. No matter how many people know how you do it or what products you use or whatever, anything like that. So like you said, Mika, I think with Gen Z and the rise of social media and its popularity, I think that mentality is kind of dwindling away slowly but surely, because there were times where you would see people like keep their products in their station and like scoop out a little bit and then use it like so that way nobody else in the salon can see what they're using. It's like it's like come on, So
yeah. They don't have the same technique, so it don't matter if you use the same product or not. Yeah. Tanya, you want to say something?
I was just saying that I'm still in the game trying to create community. And I do jump. I am on calls. I listen to a call that's in California, just trying to like gather information. But yeah, for me, it's like I feel like I'm a connector in some way. So like if someone's like, oh, I need this problem. Oh yeah, I know this person because I'm not the person who's gonna socialize and interact with people all the time. That's just not me. But I know other people who are. So I then connect them in that kind of way, or like refer people to somebody else, or like, oh, I know that information because I was on 12 different calls and I just like give the information freely. But I don't always like know who to give the information to. So I guess I'm still trying to figure that part out. But when I do see an opportunity where I can like help somebody or whatever, then I would give the shirt off my back. So I feel like I'm trying to learn the balance, but also like just give the information, because what am I going to do with it? What's the purpose of it if it's just kept with me?
Yeah. And you have to let it go. I mean, information or anything, you have to let it go so you can get something new, right? You can't hold on to stuff and expect to still fill your cup holding on to what you already have so tightly. So that's a good point, Tanya, sharing that information out, routing people to where they need to go, pointing them in the direction they need to go. Those are all very important things. And one other thing that you said earlier, you touched on Medicare or Medicaid, right? So I guess one of my questions that I have was, we know that, like Tanya said, Medicaid is covering doulas now in the state of Virginia and possibly some other states. I don't know them all, but with the expansion of Medicaid for pre and postpartum natal care, is that enough to help people who may need it? Who, it is a privilege to be able to afford and hire a midwife or a doula. Not everybody just has an extra, however much it is, to say, here, come help me after I have my baby, or can you help me prepare for my first child, or whatever the case may be. So people who can't afford it, but still, we all should have access or deserve to be able to, if we want to, have that experience. Is Medicaid enough? And do you have any thoughts or ideas, or what else can be done within the birth community to help provide those services to people who maybe can't otherwise afford it?
Well, I don't. So I want to. How do I say this? So, as a provider for you in your world, as far as like you said, Medicaid will pay for it. How would you, or would it make a difference? Let's say if you are presented with patient A, patient B. Patient A has money to pay whatever you say your rate is. But if you now say, I am credentialed to accept Medicaid as an insurance, which means you are now contracted with them and you can only take what they say they are willing to pay, right? So you got client A that can pay you, and I honestly, I don't know like what your fees or anything. I'm not knowledgeable of that. Let's say you charge $300, okay? But Medicaid say we're only willing to pay $75. How would you handle that situation? How would you go about saying or choosing, am I going with A or am I going with B?
So, in my experience, specifically to like doula work, I would always recommend that people search out grants. There are grants, especially in the DMV area, who have made doula support more accessible. I know there are even some grants that are available nationwide, and I don't know them offhand, that even make home birth accessible. So for if somebody was to reach out to me and they were to say, like, I know your rate is this, and I personally don't accept insurance only because I have always felt like I wanted this work to be sustainable. I did not want to get burnt out. I'm not going to help anybody if I'm only going to do this for what they say. I want to be here for a long time, not just a good time, or whatever the kids. I don't know. But for me, that looked like finding creative ways to serve the community, but also pay my bills. Like if I'm going to your birth and I can't even buy myself a sandwich, I'm no good to you. If I can't even get to your birth because I can't put gas in my car, I am no good to you. So starting off with grants, also seeking out families who can pay my rate, and then finding ways to like do giveaways, maybe quarterly and things like that. That's another option. Then there are also some ways that families can do crowdfunding specifically to maternal care, where they can, you want to do a gender reveal? Well, so be it. Why don't you drop the link for like Be Her Village, and you can tell them like, hey, you love this pregnancy so much. Why don't you support me getting support for my maternal health and for my postpartum care? So it's around coaching people so that their needs are met, and so are mine. Because unfortunately, I don't know too many people personally, and they might be out there, but I don't know too many people personally who have a sustainable business and they only accept insurance-based clients. So I think it's finding the balance and knowing what you're willing to do. And also, I love me some bartering. If you find a client that the husband is a mechanic, guess what? I need an oil change. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's nothing wrong with those things. You got points. Guess what? I haven't been to Puerto Rico in a long time. So it's not just about money. It's about getting to know the families you're working with. What are you willing to do? What am I willing to do? Are we a good fit? Let's figure this out together. And usually it kind of balances out with the amount of people who do have access with the people who don't. And then you can find a happy medium.
No, I totally agree with that, because unfortunately, our society when it comes down to things that insurance is willing to cover, because they have to make a profit. And it's just more of the things like, I'll say like what I'm working on. I'm working with functional medicine. Your insurance will not pay for functional medicine.
Mhm.
Why? Because it stops you from actually relying on a lot of healthcare. And so, as you said, you have to make what you're doing sustainable while you're still wanting to help your community. And definitely, I like how you thought about things of thinking outside of the box of how it can still be of help to my community where they may not be able to afford my cash price, but think of ways that I can still be able to be supportive, but feed myself in the process. And I think it goes back again to our culture of us having to, if we provide a service, so many people want us to uh, down our prices. And I can't live off of what you think or what you live off of. That's not how I can live. While I still want to service you, I still have to feed my family. So I can't discount everything. And then there we go of then we're a problem within our own community. Some would say, but I'm still trying to take care of myself. So just as you said, while people are spending all this money on their baby showers that have gotten so out of control, contribute to, in your case, me getting a doula, me getting some help, after this. So I think that's a great idea.
So to your question, Rika, I think also, things I've learned over time recently is also being true to yourself. And like Da said about being sustainable, but also like really taking a look to say, hey, if I were to have these two clients, would $75 really be enough? Would that be enough? And generally it's going to be no. The $300 is also not going to be enough. So if you have to then just say, okay, I'm going to have a sliding scale for clients, maybe I'll say like really and truly, the least amount of money I could take would be $500. And the most I'd be willing to take is $2,500. That person could, as long as you are okay with if 12 people came and did, some of the 12, 6 did the 2,500 and 5 did, and the other remainder, which would be half, did the 500. You have to be okay with saying, I'm okay with that person paying 500 and never getting to the 2,500. Or there'll be people who'll be in the middle who'll like say, okay, I'll pay, 1,800. And so you can't be true to yourself and say, oh yeah, because then when you go to the person who paid the $500, you're gonna be resentful, looking at them with the side eye, be like, you just can't hurry up, have this damn baby.
But I think a lot of it has to do with even ourselves as we're setting these prices. We're too concerned about what's in other people's pockets.
That's
well,
true.
Well, if I set this price, are they gonna? And I'm not.
And then your imposter syndrome comes in.
Whether if you can't afford me, then you're not for me. That's really the mentality sometimes we have to take on, because, like you said, Tanya, I'm gonna set this price. Will you meet this? You may not. And then I tell somebody else a higher price, and they be like, "Oh no, I really want this service. I'm gonna sacrifice for it." But you're too busy worried about, well, can they really? Is somebody gonna be willing to pay for it? Somebody, and I have to teach my people will pay for what they want, and that's it. They will pay for what I have sister locks. People paying for them left and right every day. 7 years ago, I paid $900. They're paying $1,800 now. And people will pay for it because that's what they want. And some people be like, I'm never going to pay that much money for my hair. Well, somebody will and do every single day because it's what you want.
And
so go ahead, Das.
Sorry, really quickly to that point, I periodically raise my prices, and the last time I did, it was after I went to a birth with a family that I wasn't going to take on because I was like, I'm shifting to be a midwife. And after that birth, the husband was like, you don't charge enough. And I was at bet. And the next morning, I raised my prices. And prior to that, maybe a year before, whenever I had shifted my prices, because I was with a family, and they were like, Das, you charge less than most of my friends' shoes and pocketbooks. and they buy them all the time.
And it's unfortunately sometimes it takes someone else to tell us what our worth is, because we don't see it in ourselves, because we're always worried about, if I'm too high, nobody's gonna use me.
That may be part of it, but I think part of it too is, well, I don't have 30 years of experience. I don't have 5 years of experience, so I'm going to charge, $200 because I only been doing this for 2 years. Well, that 2 years, a lot in 2 years.
When you go to your doctor, whether he's been practicing for 30 years or it's a resident, guess what?
They're getting paid.
They're gonna pay you they're gonna bill you the same amount. Does not matter. It don't matter.
We only have 15 minutes left, so I know we're having some good discussion here, and I hate to cut it off, but I do have one other thing I want to touch on. Well, actually, two. Let's see if I can get them both in. So, we started the conversation talking about the mortality rate among Black women giving birth, and we gave some stats around that. So I just want to go back to that just a little bit and kind of help our audience understand what is the reason that the mortality rate with Black women giving birth is so much higher. Like, why is it an issue, and what can we do to help resolve it? So I was reading an article on Mayo Clinic, and they gave a couple of points as to why the mortality rate was so high. First one was limited postpartum care, especially. I want to discuss that. I think we've already kind of touched on that, about our own experiences with postpartum care. So limited postpartum care, access to quality and affordable health care, delayed recognition of risk, systemic discrimination, and implicit biases. So going back to, limited postpartum. So why is postpartum so important after you have a baby? Not just because it's giving you a break, to take a nap, or giving somebody else a chance to take the baby so you can do something else. But I think it's also important for your mental health. Pregnancy, some women do experience mental issues after giving birth, and sometimes they may get pushed aside. You may not pay too much attention. Like, oh, it's whatever. But if you have a postpartum doula, or somebody that's coming in checking on you, can recognize those signs, they can point you, in places you can go to get help, or tell you, hey, have you thought about this, or have you noticed such and such and such and such? So that's important. We've talked about access to quality and affordable health care, delayed recognition of risk, systemic discrimination. So anything else that you all want to add to that list that you think may be a cause for, or elaborate on any of those things that may be a cause for the high mortality rate among Black women doing birth or after?
I think, I have so many things I want to say, but what I'm going to say is, I like how they jumped over all the things to then go and say those three things. Let's just start off with the facts. Racism, period. Like, racism. You see a Black person and you assume, and people are taught that, our pain should be ignored. What we say does not have meaning. Me telling you that I don't have autonomy over my own body. So you're going to tell me what I am. I fit into a statistic. And so those are all, the biases are definitely part of it. And people have things going on with them, but people don't listen. They don't see you. They're just like, oh, she's just being difficult. Or there's so many
Black
things
woman.
so many things that they jumped over to then be like, oh, you don't have postpartum care. I haven't even had the baby yet where I'm experiencing all these things. And you can have mental issues before you even have a baby. So yes, there's great reasons why you would have a doula and a midwife who's seeing you right after, instead of waiting 6 to 8 weeks to see you after you have your baby, is important. But let's not forget that when I go to an appointment and you see that I'm older, you just assume, which Dawes was very good at, instrumental in, is saying that I need to have my baby earlier because I'm just old. Like, there's so many things that happen at these appointments, or don't happen at these appointments, that people aren't getting the care that they should have.
You're right, Tanya. A lot starts with possible mortality way before the birth. And I'll talk on the medical side of it. And I'll never forget this night. I was a ICU nurse for some years, and we had a
I'm
She
sorry,
was
Rika.
still.
Hold on one second.
Uh-huh.
Dots, can you still hear us? I think we lost her.
John, can you hear us now?
Yeah, I had to leave. Somebody called me and then it just messed up everything.
Okay.
Okay, you can go ahead. I'll just message her. You can go ahead.
Okay. I was a ICU nurse for some years, and I'll never forget the night. Black girl comes in, maybe late 20s, early 30s. She was heavy set, came in for I don't know. I think it was. I don't know if she was due yet or not, but she was having preeclampsia, and she ended up having the baby. Blood pressure was so high, she started to hemorrhage, and um, it was one of the worst colds I've ever been in my whole life. And the just of the way that she was hemorrhaging and everything that was it. No, she passed away. Okay.
Mm.
She passed
Where was
away.
this? This was where? I'm sorry. Where was this at?
And we were in the hospital, ICU. So so dolls, I was telling them I was saying that uh the possibility of course mortality starts way before the birth of the child. And I was telling of a story of working in ICU where we had a young lady come in one night. She was a heavyset Black girl, was having some preeclampsia. She had the baby and then she began to hemorrhage. Um, and I was telling by far one of the worst colds I've ever been in my life. The amount of it looked like a Tarantino movie. It was that bad. I mean, like, and she passed away that night. And so it all starts with your care leading up to the day that you deliver. Um, and as we know, even patients who are on Medicaid, yeah, you receive care, maybe not always the best because some places, especially now, a lot of places aren't taking certain types of insurance anymore. So you're trying to get in with at places who are cram packed that may can't get you in. It's a lot of things that lead up to that just may not be following well. So what we're going to be high risk for anyway is going to be the preeclampsia, because while we're high risk for hypertension, even before we get pregnant, and preeclampsia can be there, not there yesterday and pop up on you today. But if you are not in tune with even before this of having proper healthcare management where you're managing yourself, before you know it, you're in a world of trouble. So this starts even before pregnancy, but most of it becomes extremely important of knowing our body, having proper care, even after you're pregnant with your OBGYN, but even your primary care physician that normally follows along with your regular, health maintenance to make sure that where you're at. So it starts day one of finding out when you're, with child pregnancy, of how it's going to end, how it carries out and how things end. So it's something that you need to be vigilant of before you get pregnant, when you're pregnant, and even still you can have preeclampsia after you give birth. So you still need to have surveillance after. It still goes back to, yes, now you're worried about a baby, but guess what? Now you're not worried about yourself, and here you are back at home, and you're wondering why you're thinking you're tired and lightheaded, dizziness because you're not eating or drinking. Nah, boo, your blood pressure is 200 over 100. You're about ready to stroke out, but you're not now. You're not worried about So it's a full circle that you have to be so mindful of.
Mm-hmm. So you touched on one thing, which is my next point I wanted to bring up was, I know there's this mindset that somehow hospitals are safer. But even before women started giving birth in hospitals, there were midwives, and then hospitals just, I had some stats on it and I can't find the stats that I had, but
Before
hospitals
people was
just
giving
became a thing.
birth in hospitals, people was giving babies at home in the
At home, yeah.
in the
Oh, yeah.
backyard, and everybody
Yeah.
did okay.
Yeah. But now people have this perception that hospitals are safer, right? So my question is, and I think I already know your answer, but my question is hospitals actually safer? And are we in more danger by having that perceived thought or concept that hospitals are safer? So I'm going to go to the hospital. Is it better to labor at home? And what are the benefits of laboring at home and giving birth in a home or a more comfortable atmosphere than a hospital with the beeping machines, nurses in and out, and all those things?
Yes, statistically, we know that people with a low risk pregnancy have better outcomes outside of the hospital, and also, like, I was Lamaze trained, and they came out with this awesome thing called the Lamaze 6, the healthy birth practices. And what that put together is like the statistics around what gave people the most satisfaction around their birth outcomes. And one of them we noticed, you mentioned it, Mika, was that laboring at home longer led to more satisfaction. And that's if you qualified to do so. Now, that also includes avoiding unnecessary medical interventions. And I'm not opposed to interventions. I'm not opposed to hospitals. I'm not opposed to those things. But in a lot of circumstances, we overuse these tools just because they're available. So for many people, we do know that if they qualify, if they don't have like gestational diabetes or, gestational hypertension, preeclampsia, if they don't have certain risk factors, they can totally qualify for an out-of-hospital birth experience. And if they feel safer in a hospital, I promise you that's where they belong. People should give birth where they feel safe. But if they're going to make that decision, it is in their best interest to labor at home as long as possible if they want to avoid unnecessary medical interventions. A hospital is not a hotel. People aren't just going there because they 4 centimeters just kicking it. If you are going there, it should be because you need something. If you are in that space, they are going to offer you something. So I think how people can help themselves is do childbirth education or even a preconception education. And that way not only will we avoid potentially negative outcomes for childbirth, but also put our bodies in a really great position to be in best health and avoid a lot of things. Because if we knew how much water to drink and protein and all the things, you'd be surprised how the statistics would change in the opposite direction and give us better outcomes. Did that answer your question?
Yes, that answers, yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts on hospital births versus home births or laboring at home longer? Anybody else have anything to add to that?
I think Josh summed it up great. I think it's important to remember that your bodies were made for this. I think sometimes we are so used to not listening to our intuition or our own selves that we then become conditioned to listen to somebody who we perceive has more education or more knowledge and experience when your body is made to do what you're going through. So I think that if you're at home, you're comfortable, you don't have to hear the beeping, you don't have to see people in the coach, you don't have to always have nurses coming in, you can relax, you can have fun, you can have your children, if you have other children around, you can have sleep. Sleep is so important to having a baby.
You can eat.
Eat, yep. So there's so
You can
many
have
things
sex.
you can do home. That too.
I mean, you can do it in the hospital. Just tell your doula to leave the room.
That helps with birth, actually.
Yes, absolutely.
So one thing, I don't have the stat in front of me, but I don't know when the time frame was, but when women first started going to the hospital to give birth, they would give them medicine, like a drug, to put them in what they call it, a twilight stage or a twilight phase,
Twilight
something.
sleep, yep.
So they were basically drugging these people, and then epidurals came along, and then pitocin came along to speed up the birth and stuff like that. And a lot of times, doctors are, and I'm not a birth worker, so let me just preface that. Okay, this is just Mika talking. This is just my opinion. But a lot of times I think doctors force or speed up births because either they got a schedule to keep, they want to go on vacation, there's nobody on call, so they're going to give you the pitocin, they're going to induce your labor, they're going to make you feel like, oh, I have to do this. If I don't do it, my baby might not make it. And that's not always true.
I play in Brooklyn. I'm not even going to lie. The day that they said She could be born. I said May 31st will be her birthday. And let me tell you why, because I had a preceptor that accepted me for my ER clinical rotation.
But I
And I
mean, you
couldn't
knew
miss it.
this going in. Like you knew it. At least you had the knowledge of it. But
Oh, I
people
know.
sometimes don't know. It's forced upon them
Oh, no.
of their
And then
own.
and then Brinley, she was induced because I was having preeclampsia. So
Yeah.
she, she had to show up. But yeah. And then Elijah came 26. Now I did learn what laboring was with Elijah because I thought I was having a stomach ache after I had pizza. Because I'm 25. I didn't know what labor was. And I was 26 and a half weeks. So I'm like, wow, there was some greasy pizza. My stomach sure is hurting. Like, this just don't feel good.
No, you're in labor.
Hour and a half go by. I'm like, this is just getting worse. This is, maybe something's wrong with that pizza. This is just not right. Until I threw up. And then I was like, something is really not right. And even to that, I called the on-call OB, whoever she was, and she was my doctor from the office. And I told her, I said, I think I'm in labor. And I was telling her everything. And she said, oh, I don't think you are. You'll be fine. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I'll meet you at Henrico Doctors because I'll be there in 15 minutes. And when I got there, and they was like, oh, ma'am, you're not going anywhere. You're going to have a baby tonight. Yeah. So even still, that goes back to someone not listening. Because I'm telling you, ma'am, something is completely not right in this situation. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
And she felt in her knowledge that, oh, you're fine. You'll be okay. No, I'm not. Yeah. And
you have to advocate for yourself, not just in birth, but in any area in life. You have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah. And I think
if you don't, nobody's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
So we're right at time. So to end tonight, first, I just want to thank Tanya and Dawes for coming on and sharing some of your knowledge and experience with us. It's been very informative. I wish we had more time to talk. There's so much more still to talk about, but thank you so much for joining us tonight. And to close out, I have 2 facts that I want to share. The first one is Margaret Charles Smith was an African-American midwife who became known for her extraordinary skills over a long career spanning over 30 years. So she was, I believe I read she was the first midwife or first African-American midwife. Something, I should have got a better stats, but just go search her for yourself. Margaret Charles Smith. One last stat is about the word doula. It comes from an ancient Greek meaning of a woman who serves, and is now used to refer to a trained and experienced professional who provides continuous physical, emotional, and informational support to the mother before, during, and after birth. Clinical studies have shown that working with the doula provides 50% reduction in C-sections, 25% reductions in the length of labor, 60% reduction in the rate of epidural use, and 40% reduction in the need for forceps. And there's also a higher breastfeeding rate among women who use doula services. So before 2 years ago, I had no idea what a doula was. And when, we got one, I was like, do we need one? Like, do we really need to spend this much money? But it's well worth every penny, no matter what the cost. It's worth having someone there for that support and advocacy for you, and just to understand what you're going through and to help you prepare to give birth. So if there's any of our listeners out there who may be getting ready to give birth or experience birth for the first time, the second time, the third time, it's worth hiring somebody to help out and have that support. So thank you all again for joining. Yeah.
You can't end the call without saying Happy Black Midwives Day to Dawes.
Thank you.
Oh, that's today?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize. Happy Black Midwives Day, Dawes.
Thank you.
And congratulations.
Maybe we should do a part 2. This would be great.
Thanks. I would love
I think
to.
John must like the idea of a part 2.
I mean, because we have in a month's time there's Black Maternal Health Week, so that's in a month's time. So you can maybe have further conversation. But yeah, I didn't want to leave without saying Happy Black Midwives Day.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Girl is certified.
Thanks, everyone. What'd you say, Dawes?
I said your girl.
Thank you all for joining us for this week's episode of the Let's Rap About It podcast. We hope that you enjoyed it, and we ask that you please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. We look forward to seeing you back on the next one.